having a system that can interpret and provide an authoritative answer puts you in a different sphere, and we know the limitations of AI in terms of news summaries that have been in, but we also know by 2026 everything will have moved on, and so I'll be very surprised if there isn't a very substantial role. Like, was just in terms of the web chat, more I've thought about it, more I thought that I think in the past we've tended to talk about getting people to move from this to that, and I think right back at the beginning, Joanna was talking about us having a better understanding of who's using the web chat service, because just as apocryphally we always talked as if people over a certain age would only communicate by phone, which we know now not to be true. Apocryphally, people even younger than me are supposedly highly resistant to talking to people on the phone, and will go to any lengths not to do so. So in fact, understanding what proportion of the web chat traffic people who would not otherwise have contacted us at all is going to be quite important, because otherwise, we could make some false assumptions about, we're up to, it's about a quarter of the level of trade that we had through the telephone calls, but this might be extra business, in which case, whose business? Is it different business? How do we respond to that change?
Thank you. Councillor Paul?
Yeah, we've got a very wide range of residents, and at one extreme you've got people who aren't very IT literate, and a lot of them struggle. So the issues that Councillor Nand mentioned about getting councillors in to help, because they're really having problems. One thing there that has come up a few times is when you have service departments that have either a phone number or a generic email, and then they take that away because people should be directed to web forms, but it just disappears. So users have been used to using that method, and it's not signposted properly. And then another aspect is that the hubs in libraries. I mean, so in theory they ought to be able to deliver the same sort of services that Personal House Customer Centre used to do, but I think there's two issues. So one is, as you said, they don't have the staff from all the different service departments, but also what we've heard from residents is when they used to go there with a more complex query, what would happen is that the person downstairs would phone someone up who was more specialist, upstairs, and actually sort the issue out, whereas now that's not happening. And so I welcome what you're saying about getting phone backs, but it would be good if the customer, if people in the hubs could actually phone at that point and talk to people in service departments when it's a more complex thing. Yeah, I think you mentioned the no face-to-face service for homelessness. I think that's something, I mean, it's in the report, it just lists as a challenge, but I think that's definitely something that needs to be in there, because I think that's an awful situation. I think many of us have seen, families with young children, in the cold outside Personal House, and you've got to have some route that these people can access services. And then at the other end of the extreme, we've got the new methods. So yeah, I mean, the web chat, it seems, obviously a web chat's really super useful to have, but as Ben mentioned, it's not using AI at the moment. Also, it seems, if I'm understanding correctly, and you can answer this, is it right that when they get to the end of the chat and it's not resolved, it tries to get them to phone rather than to have an agent coming on? Is that no, that's not right. It seemed to be what it said in the report, because again, Councillor Donnelly's point that there are a lot of young people who are very resistant to phones. So if that is the case, that's not good. And then the final thing is, I'm surprised you didn't mention Love Clean Streets in here, because that is a really useful way for a lot of residents to raise issues, and it's a cheap way for us because it's avoiding phoning. So I'm kind of surprised that's not sort of more picked up as more of the strategy, and whether more services could be added to it. Thanks.
So in terms of the wide range of residents and different access channels, I think we have to acknowledge that a huge number of our residents don't want to speak to anyone in the council. They just want to kind of quick transaction, you know, and get on with their daily lives. And I think that's what the online services do or intend to do, is provide that convenience of access. I think what it also, the online service also help us do is actually create capacity on the front line, on the phones and face to face, because we don't have to deal with the simple transactions. We actually got a bit more capacity to deal with more complex queries and spend a bit more time with customers. I think in terms of the queries where you said, you know, when we were in sort of personal house, we had someone calling from downstairs and the query was resolved, and at the moment the more complex queries cannot be resolved in the hubs. I think the service delivery model has changed. However, I don't think it is worse than it used to be, because I remember on you know, in Percival House, like I said, I've got benefits background, so we're directing benefit customers to the phones because you know, we couldn't answer more complex queries, or there was simply a queue so big that people would wait for hours on end. At the moment, our waiting times in the hubs are around 15 minutes, and that's what our target is. You know, we've got sort of good relationships with some of the services, and we're working on making sure that we've got a relationship with other back office services. So we've got complex queries that can be escalated and then responded within 48 hours. So I think it's just the service delivery model is very different to what it was. In terms of new methods of and the web chat, yes, the web chat, if the query cannot be resolved, the web chat then links the person directly to the customer service advisor to speak to the person, but that's around 1% of all the queries. So 99% of queries are resolved through the web chat, which I think it's really amazing, and only 1% of people come through the call centre. In terms of Love Clean Streets, I know that's one of the apps, and as part of the strategy, we will be looking at sort of all the IT systems and all the apps and everything else that we use as a council to communicate. But I think we've got so many internal and external systems that it's very difficult to kind of list them all. So obviously, yes, that will be something that will be taken into account in this, but not necessarily named in as part of the strategy as such.
I'm still not quite clear on the web chat. If you get right to the end, the 1%, are they an online chat with someone, or is that 1% a phone call?
It's a phone call.
Because I think that's the problem. I think that it should be an online chat. That's how these things normally work for most organisations, isn't it?
The reason for escalation to the call centre agent is that there is a more complex query, and therefore there was a conscious decision to escalate those queries from the web chat to the call centre agent. As we progress with new services being brought onto web chat, we might actually change the approach, but because it's only one service at the moment, there might be a query for another services. That's why it kind of directed to the agent, and obviously that's between office hours as well. So it's between 9 and 5. So if it's beyond 5 o'clock, then the query will remain unanswered.
Thank you. Emily?
Thank you. I was just to say, we've got 2 months of data at the moment, so this is quite new. So I think, as Joanna said, it was a conscious decision potentially to be that way, because it was then becoming more complex and personal than just a pointing someone to another form or another part of the website. But I think the more we learn, as we say, actually at the moment, only a very small number of these are being escalated, but we will learn from what's being escalated. We'll either find a way to say, actually, that could have been put into the code or whatever it is. Sorry, I'm not the right technical person. That actually means we're not even going to have to escalate it next time. The computer can learn and it'll go to the right place next time. Or it may be that we say, actually, it wasn't what we thought. It wasn't that things were so complex, and we need to think, is it something that we can do through there? I think we'd have to explore the sort of technology and the solutions to do that. But I think we've actually been really pleased at the first just 2 months of data and the number of transactions that we've got. But we've got to now learn from this. We'll learn from what we've got in environment, and we'll look to extend that and roll that out. But this is, I guess, an emerging strategy. Really, we've brought it to you before we've finished it, because we think that the feedback's helpful. Certainly some of that information on communications and making sure that and the accessibility will help us as we develop it. But some of this stuff, sort of, we're taking an AI as well. We're giving it a go. We're having to be careful because of GDPR and privacy and confidentiality, but we're sort of giving it a go and kind of developing as we go. So it's been really helpful, certainly these questions for us to think about as we take it forward. But I guess I would say sort of some of it is not fully formed yet, and as we get some of this, you've seen one of the key streams is data. The more data and understanding we have of the things that we try, the more we can try to develop those services. Emily. Councillor Ward?
I think I came in after your summing up there, Emily. I was on the list, by the way. Sorry. It's a very small point, and it, obviously I appreciate it's work in progress, and thank you very much for presenting it tonight. But what I'd like to say is, what is your measure of success, and what targets will you set yourself, where you've achieved, you've not achieved, etc., etc. Because that is quite key to what, the end of a strategy and the plan that gets you to that strategy. So I don't see any now, and I don't expect it right now, but I'm just saying that for the future, really, when we come back and look at it again, maybe we have some metrics, and yes, that's where we want to be, and that's what we want to achieve. And if we don't, we haven't got to where we really want to be. But that's not all I want to say. It wasn't really a question, just a thought.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last question or comment. So just say thank you very much to Emily, Steve and Joanna. I think that will, when it all happens, it will make a massive difference to the council, and it will be a great thing. So well done. Is the committee happy to note the progress of the streams as they're emerging? Great. Okay. Thank you again, and you're free to go. So we go on to the final item, which is the work programme, which will be presented by Sam.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to, conscious of the time, I'm not going to take up loads of time on this very short report, but as you can see, we've got the work programme here. It's got one sort of last full meeting coming up for the end of the municipal year. There are a number of items you can see that have been, I think, that I've put on as sort of to be looked at for next year, and of course that will be a decision for whoever's chairing for next year. So there's a few items on there that are down as TBC, which have sort of come up, and we haven't been able to schedule it in for whatever reason this year, and they're something to be, I'd say, considered next year. Couple of items on there. So one is about digital development, one's about the Safe Reading Partnership annual report. The digital development, I guess we've heard a little bit about it tonight, but I think the idea is that we're going to work in some of the stuff around AI in there. Is that right, Chair? Yes. They're the items coming up. Likely to have a report as well, just on scrutiny for the next municipal year, as well as we normally do, just to review how things have gone and have a look at perhaps how we want to do things for next year as well. So I think that's about it for the work programme, but happy for any suggestions, requests for other items, or any feedback for early stages for next year as well.
I think Councillor Conti has.
There was actually a suggestion that a resident wrote to me about, and I wasn't sure whether this is the right forum or what one of the other scrutiny panels, but on electric charging, obviously a lot's been done in terms of actually the physical charging points, but on gully charging, and there's lots of sort of government schemes available with funding, etc., and sort of beyond what the council's already doing to increase rollout, in particular in sort of terrace streets, etc., what the policy or the plan is. Now, I don't know if that's something that would come here or maybe would sit under one of the other scrutiny panels, but I just wonder whether that's something that we could potentially look at.
Yeah, take it away. I think we do have the sort of service panels. I think that's probably something that would more fit with those. So I think we've got the chair of panel 2, who, if you're happy to have a think about it and have a look where it will fit in your work programme, then speak to officers as well. I think would be helpful.
Okay, I think that brings the meeting to a close. Thank you all. The next meeting might be a call-in on the 6th of March. We might meet again then, or otherwise on the 10th of April. But thank you all for your attendance tonight and all your hard work and comments and questions. Thank you.